So 2 weeks after the storming of the Capitol, this week's chapter seems to be the most important in the book to me. This has been a hobby horse of mine for a while, but I think you'd be forgiven if it was a stumbling block for you. Many of us come to the church looking for a system of morality. But in the fourth chapter of his book, What Christianity Is Not, Douglas John Hall says Christianity is not a system of morality. He's got 3 reasons why we really like systems of morality. First is that theological reflection is hard. We work all week and deal with pressures of day-to-day life. For a lot of us, we want church to be an antidote, a little refuge from our lives, an oasis, if not to give us some guidance on how to make the rest of our lives less stressful. Simple guidelines are just easier to manage than constant theological reflection. Secondly, there are powerful vested interests behind simple systems of morality. People who share a strict set of beliefs are frankly easier to manage and manipulate. If you keep moving the bar a little bit, people will try to please you. It's just too tempting of a system not to take advantage of. Investors have been known to invest heavily in mobilizing the Christian community simply for their own business interests. It's not a theological thing, it's good business sense. Governments and political parties have taken this tack, with identity politics being the chief example. But even on a more individual level, churches have taken advantage of this at best because it's easier, and at worst because some church leaders like being leaders. There's much to be gained from people who believe in simple systems of morality. Finally, there's just something very human about the desire for a simple system of morality. To some degree, we are all insecure, and ticking a box off a list of what makes you a good person, that scratches a really strong itch. Douglas Hall uses the parable of the rich man from Mark to explain it. And the picture he paints is one of, I would say, self-medicating. He was this man who had an anxiety with himself. He was searching for ways to be a better person, and he had ticked all the boxes by his own admission, and sounds like Jesus kind of agreed with him. But the itch was still there. He had done literally everything he could, and he was still searching to be better. And Jesus, as the new radical teacher on the block, he must have had more boxes to tick, right? Makes sense. Maybe Jesus would have the thing that he needed to release him from whatever was afflicting him. But Jesus didn't have the thing that he was looking for, and he went away disappointed. Hall interprets this passage a little differently than it's traditionally read. When Jesus tells the rich man to sell all his things, we usually see it as the one thing the man couldn't let go of, the one box that he couldn't tick. But Hall says this was actually indicative of a complete reorientation of the man's life. He was looking for his next fix, but instead Jesus gave him a whole new life. Hall spends a fair amount of the chapter reflecting on how we got here. At 93 years old, he remembers the pre-war influence of the Victorian era. And he came of age in the radical 50s and 60s. What he describes is a pendulum that swung from extremely strict Victorian systems of morality to the morality of the 60s rebellion against it. And then sort of back with Jerry Falwell's moral majority movement in the 70s, and ultimately to the incredibly polarized position that we find ourselves in today. And what I find really interesting is that Hall compares this new morality of the 60s and beyond as an even stricter system of morality than the old morality he grew up with. Think about this. Think about blue jeans. Blue jeans were seen as the antithesis to the establishment's business suit of the 1950s. They were a symbol of the counterculture. But today, if you were to go out on the street, 90% of the people would be wearing blue jeans. And often, maybe I'm just oversensitive, but often, if you're not wearing blue jeans and you're not on your way to work, as a man anyway, you're seen as a little stuck up. Suits, on the other hand, have always had variety. Cuts and fabrics change, and even in communities where people dress relatively similarly, maybe there's a dress code, ties and pocket squares are a flamboyant flash of expression. But blue jeans, especially for men, they're all pretty much the same. Blue jeans are far more conformist than suits ever were. Hall says we took strict moral commands to not drink, smoke, swear, gamble, play cards, or dance. That's just smoking tobacco, by the way. Hall grew up before that whole debate. And we turn them to the affirmative. Thou shall be open-minded. Thou shall try new things. Thou shall be rebellious. We traded one thing for another. And today, with our populism and identity politics, we've got two systems of morality taking swings at each other. We love a system of morality. And today in particular, that seems poignant. The storming of Capitol Hill was such a failing of simple moral systems. On the one hand, we have a group of people that are clearly searching for something, a group of people with a certain level of discomfort they can't seem to scratch, belonging to the various groups that have come together to scratch that itch. And when you pay attention to the message, there's common refrains through it. Despite the fact that these people barred democracy from safely happening, they genuinely thought they were upholding democratic values. They were defending their system of morality. And it was a system of morality that, on the surface, had everything in common with the people on the other side of that door in the Senate chambers. If you're keeping track, we've touched on Hall's first and third reason why we like systems of morality. It's easy. The thinking is done for us. And it brings a certain level of satisfaction. It's human, and it feels like we're working on whatever anxiety we're struggling with. Of course, in this particular case, the vested interests abound. Currently, Donald Trump is being investigated for inciting a seditious riot. Does that not seem like something from the 18th century? There's a lot of evidence that Vladimir Putin's regime, who have a lot of vested interest in showing the world that America's not so great, have had a considerable role in stirring the pot. Also, many Trump supporters are QAnon followers, and it's fairly clear that the person behind QAnon is simply interested in sowing seeds of discord. We have even seen at home, it's completely unrelated, but right here in Hastings County, we have seen our local MP thrown out of caucus for accepting large sums of money from a well-known white supremacist. Simple systems of morality have been taken advantage of to great success. Okay, so Christianity is not a system of morality. Systems of morality are problematic. So what else do we do? Coming back to the story of the rich man came looking for another moral teaching. What Jesus offered was new life. And I don't actually mean the eternal kind in this case. Jesus offered this man a whole new way of being. A way of being that was based not on a set rules or a creed or a personal code, anything like that. A way of being that was based on constant discernment, on love, on justice. Imagine how the man would live if he dedicated it to living with the poor. Imagine the transformation in his being rather than just his lifestyle or his decisions if he spent significant time with the vulnerable. That is transformative. That is the life that Jesus was offering. It's funny, in most of Hall's chapters, I kind of think he's splitting hairs. For example, when he says we're not a people of the book, but then he says the book's still really important. I think he's probably splitting hairs here. But here, he's putting his foot down. And I think today we can see plainly why. When we start to boil things down into systems of morality, we get exclusive. We develop blind spots. Our anxiety bubbles to the surface. And it's fed by people who want to take advantage of that anxiety. Hall thinks ethics are very important, but only so long as it remains a continuous conversation, and a conversation with everyone included. Amen.